Hi, I'm Cailey, a librarian here at Mentor Public Library.
And I'm Meg, also a librarian here at Mentor, and welcome to this week's edition of All Booked Up with Cailey and Meg, where each week we talk about different books related to a specific theme. This week's theme is we're going to be talking about books related to Banned Books Week. So Cailey, tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, Banned Books Week starts tomorrow, September 27th, and goes through October 3rd. And if you've never heard of Banned Books Week before, this celebrates your freedom to read. All of the books that we're going to talk about today have faced challenges that were reported to the American Library Association's Office for Intellectual Freedom. This office collects reports of challenges at schools and libraries throughout the year, and every year puts out a list of the top 10 most challenged reads. They also have a list of most challenged classics. During Banned Books Week, we celebrate everyone's choice to read whatever they'd like. These books that we are going to talk about today and the ones on this list often tackle difficult issues related to class, race, sexuality, or violence. The books spark thought, discussion, and often will help make us aware of new ideas or issues in the world. So Meg, what's your first banned book?
Yes, so my first banned book is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, which came out a couple years ago. This book is about 16-year-old Star Carter, and Star has to navigate two very different worlds. There's her neighborhood where she lives called the Garden Heights, a Black neighborhood, and then Williamson Prep is where she goes to school, and the school she goes to is like this private school where almost all the other students are white. It's very affluent. So she has to navigate these two different worlds, and she's really good at it. She does a really good job, and she's thriving in both of these environments. All of that begins to change, and a lot more tension mounts when she's hanging out one night with her best childhood friend named Khalil. They're hanging out, and then they get pulled over, and a police officer actually shoots and kills her best friend, and he's unarmed. And this is wrecking Star's life, and it makes national news. It makes the headlines. This is a sad, tragic story that everyone all over the country is talking about. As this happens, more and more details and stories and theories about Khalil's life come out, including that he may have been a drug dealer and all these kind of rumors. No one knows for sure. But in the midst of all that discussion, there starts to come out this idea that somehow, because of whatever was going on in Khalil's life, that somehow justifies what the police officer did to him. And this is just wrecking Star inside. And she's the most heartbroken that some of her schoolmates at her school, including one of her best friends, even begins to think along these lines, that it's somehow justified. So it goes through that. And the fact that Star was there that night with Khalil starts to become more and more important as, it gets to, getting ultimate justice for Khalil. So the question for Star becomes, what is she going to say? Is she going to hold anything back? And pretty much the courage she needs to speak the truth. One of my favorite quotes in the book is from her mom, actually. Her mom tells her, sometimes you can do everything right and things will still go wrong. The key is to never stop doing right. So I think that's a great message in this book. So obviously with the whole, there's this theme of police violence and brutality in this book. There has been controversy around this book, and in 2018, it was number 4 on the banned book list of most challenged banned books for violence, drug use, and just some of the more controversial aspects of this book. However, it was also made into a popular movie as well. So I think it's a book that really speaks to the current climate we live in.
And it's very timely.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those books that, like I was saying, these challenged books often spark great discussion. And I actually did talk about this with a book group at one point, and it was a really good discussion book.
Wow, awesome.
My next book is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. You might have heard of it.
Maybe, yeah.
This is a classic title that is one of the most challenged and banned. And I think this is one of those titles that like almost everyone read in high school, but I never did.
Wait, what?
I know.
When did you read it? When did you read it?
It was only a couple of years ago that I actually read this with my book group here at the library. We typically pick one classic a year, and that year they picked this book. And it made for an amazing discussion, especially for people who had read it as a teen and were rereading it again with their new perspective. So this book is a Pulitzer Prize winner, and it's set in the 1930s in this tiny town in Alabama. Kids Scout and her brother Jem, they live with their lawyer father, Atticus Finch. And the two of them spend most of their days with their neighbor Dill. And they get into all sorts of antics together, including a mission to try to lure their reclusive neighbor Boo Radley out of his house. A large part of this book really surrounds the children, the childhood, the games, like the running wild in the neighborhood kind of stuff, as well as their small town life. And it's very charming. However, in 1930s Alabama, this town is also very racist and very separated. And this is all seen through the child's eyes of Scout, who tries to make sense of everything. And when Scout's father takes on the role of defense attorney for a Black man, Tom Robinson, who is accused of raping a white woman, Scout's eyes are really open to the reality of this very divisive situation. People pick on the children, they ridicule their father, and they intend to kill Tom Robinson without even going to trial. There's a lot that goes on in this book, but it's really a timeless tale, and it's very relevant no matter the age. If you have not read this book yet, you definitely should. Even if you've read it years ago, maybe it's time for you to reread it. This book has been challenged many, many, many times, largely for the inclusion of profanity and racial slurs, which seem necessary in the context.
Right. And have you seen the movie with Gregory Peck? Have you seen that?
You know what? I haven't, and I love Gregory Peck. I really should watch that one.
So read the book and also watch the movie, because that's very good as well. Yeah, so my next banned book is actually also a classic. It's called A Separate Peace by John Knowles. And this is considered one of those classic coming of age stories. It was actually published in 1959. But it takes place mostly in between the summer of 1942 and 1943. So it centers around Gene Forrester, and it's about his teen years at high school. And it's about his friendship with Phineas. So him and Phineas are best friends, and they actually have very different personalities. So Gene is more of the intellectual, kind of introverted and shy type, while Phineas, he's called Finney throughout the book as well. He's very outgoing, extroverted, and he loves sports. So they're kind of two polar opposites. So it is cool to see, they do have this close bond, however. So it goes through all the different things they do together. But then the author uses kind of this context of their major differences to show how, insecurity, fear, and really ultimately jealousy can lead to, have some horrible ramifications even for these close friends. So I won't spoil too much of what happens, but it's a very compelling read. People have noticed a lot that it's about the loss of innocence and morality, and then it's also, of course, since it's 1942, there's also the backdrop of World War II going on, so they talk about patriotism a lot. This has been challenged over the years by high schools, usually for profanity and offensive language. So, but it's also recently been listed as part of PBS's Great American Read, which happened a couple years ago, where they listed the top 100 American books. And I believe even To Kill a Mockingbird was on that list as well. So it just goes to show you that some of the most enduring books that we recognize today have a history of being challenged. So I think that's pretty significant.
Definitely. And that one is one I read in high school.
Good.
but maybe it's worth a reread now as an adult.
Yes, I agree.
The next book I have is a little bit of a throwback to what we were talking about last week with graphic novels. The next book I'm talking about is Drama by Raina Telgemeier. And this is a middle grade read, which whenever I have gone to speak with 6th and 7th graders about books, they all know and love Raina Telgemeier.
Yeah.
We're constantly looking for books that are similar to her, but she's got a pretty unique style. Anyway, this book is about Cailey, and she is in drama club, and she loves drama club and theater, but she is more of a behind the scenes kind of girl. She knows that her voice is nothing super special. In fact, it's not the greatest. And so she is not interested in being on stage, but loves to be part of the production. And this year, she is the set designer for the school's play, Moon Over Mississippi, which is some sort of Southern romantic type musical. And drama club and middle school are simply full of drama. And there are crushes and arguments and budget limits to work with for the drama club. And it is just a very stressful, very teenage situation.
Yeah.
And working on the stage crew doesn't really make Cailey exempt from all of that drama. She gets sucked into all the different things happening around her. One of the things is that Cailey makes friends with Justin and Jesse, who are twin 8th graders who are in the drama club with them. And they're working on the play with her, and she becomes really close to them, but that sort of causes a strain with her old friends who don't really like Cailey branching out beyond the usual friend group. And this book is just kind of a great insight into what it's like to be in the drama club in middle school, which I was. And it's also just very realistic to all of the huge earth-shattering problems that middle schoolers face. And this title has been in the top 10 most challenged list for 2019, most recently due to the inclusion of LGBT characters. But as I said, it's much beloved.
Yeah, and as someone who orders, I order a lot of graphic novels for the library. Her style, like you said, a lot, try to replicate it. You know, she has her own unique style, but it's definitely ushered in a new era of graphic novels that for, you know, that age group. And I think anyone can enjoy them because the storytelling can be so good. So, well, great. Thank you, Cailey. So if anyone is interested to learn more about these books or any other books that have been banned or challenged in the past, we encourage you to go to www.bannedbooksweek.org, and you can get a lot more information if you're just more curious about Banned Books Week. It's definitely something we do a lot here at the library, so we know a lot about it. So we're happy to also answer any questions you have. Also, next week on All Booked Up with Cailey and Meg, we're going to be doing teen nonfiction books, something we haven't done yet, so I'm excited.
Yes, that should be fun. All right, so that's all we have for today. Thank you for joining us. Go on and celebrate your freedom to read with these books and others, and happy reading.
Bye.